Welcome to another episode of
HardTarget Range.
Welcome to another episode of HardTarget Range. Today we're looking at the Mossberg 590 Shockwave 12 gauge. This one happens to be my winter version with the winter camo, which is appropriate because, yeah, it's winter. Here we are in the middle of December. What a beautiful day. The sun's shining. Just makes you glad to be alive, which, yeah, Mr. Holster still is. So let's take this thing. What we're going to do, we're at range 1 here, and we're going to shoot at that paper on the target down there and pattern this at 21 feet so we can see what this frangible ammunition. Today we're shooting the heavy shot 12 gauge double-aught buckshot. And if you're familiar with my channel, you know we always shoot frangible ammunition at the hard target range. And that frangible ammunition is a mixture of copper and polymer bonded together, and it tends to be a lot lighter than regular bullets, in this case regular shot. So I thought we'd stop here on the way to that beautiful hard target range and pattern it at 21 feet to see what it does. Then we'll head over and shoot at those beautiful AR 500 steel hard targets by hard target. So let's put this thing on paper at 21 feet and see what it does. Well, there you go, guys. It's less than a 5-inch span. I think that'll get the job done. Let's head on over to those beautiful steel AR 500 steel hard targets by hard target and put some of these pellets on those. The Mossberg Shockwave. What a fun gun. Let's go back to the shop and talk about it. Howdy parts, Mr. Holster here. Today I'm going to talk about, you notice I got my Mossberg 590 Shockwave here. And I want to talk a little bit about lasers. In particular, one laser which I've been looking at and almost want to buy one to put on my Shockwave. And I thought what I'd do is talk about it this morning, and of course I don't have it in my hands and can't give you a real review on it, but I want to kind of sort of touch on it because it's the only one I've seen so far that I would put on my firearm. Before I start talking about it, I'm going to give you, if you haven't watched my channel very much, and it's been a long time since I talked about lasers, so if you've been a long-time viewer, you probably know where I'm going to go with this, but I want to talk briefly about lasers. I'm not a fan of lasers at all. I'm really not on a firearm. They have a lot of positive attributes that make them a great thing to have on a firearm, especially maybe in a home defense scenario. But for me, I'm one of these guys that doesn't trust electronics, really. And you've got things, my grandfather, I'm going to go take you back to about 1960, and my grandfather got a new Chrysler New Yorker. And I can remember sitting there, he lived in Michigan, we went to stay there for a few weeks in the summertime every year. We went to see him, and he had this brand new car, and my dad said, you got crank windows on it, why didn't you get power windows? And he said, no, that's just something else to go wrong. And that's really stuck with me. And I kind of, every time I buy anything, and I always remember that, and I look at it and go, do I really need that? Because anytime you get some extra little thing on it, it's something else to go wrong. And of course, what's happened to these Shockwaves, I think, nowadays, is they've become very popular with people. They're almost like the new AR-15. I see this forum on Facebook with Shockwaves, and I saw one the other day where the guy had a plain old Shockwave. He just picked it up at the gun store, and he had a picture of it, and along with that a post where he said, now the fun starts, how many things can I put on it? What can I put on it? How much stuff can I put on this thing? And that's why I say it's like the new AR-15. Seeing how many things they can hang on it, like a cell phone or a toaster or whatever else that they think is necessary to have with it. And to me, I had a real problem hanging this flashlight on it because anytime you add something to it, not to mention this sling, but I do find the sling on this very handy. Yeah, especially around here at nighttime when I want to go out and hear a noise and I got to travel half a mile on the property, and it's nice to have it and sling it, and I feel a little better having this with me because, quite frankly, I think it's going to be pretty effective. And at any rate, see, now I've gone adrift and kind of not know where I was. Yeah, it's kind of become the new AR-15 where people are hanging everything in the world on it. And to me, it defeats the purpose of it. The purpose of it is, you know, you lose something when you lose this stock, but you got something here that's awful handy and maneuverable, and you start hanging on it, hanging stuff on it, it just doesn't make sense to me because you lose that mobility when you start hanging junk all over this gun. So I was laughing at that guy's post, and it made me start thinking about the laser back again, because I actually looked at that laser and thought to myself, you know, there's one laser I would put on, is that new Crimson Trace saddleback. We'll take a picture, I'll put a picture of it up here, we'll take a look at it and talk about it. Now you notice how the thing is mounted on the firearm, and what it does, it takes those 4 screw mounts on the top of your Shockwave for a scope or red dot or a Picatinny rail, and it utilizes that to mount this thing, and it basically just suction cups on the receiver. And you see, I like that because it's going to be awful hard to bounce that thing. You got this right here, my flashlight, my TLR1 HL Streamlight on this thing. It's got like 800 lumens. You can almost burn a hole through a wall with it. And it's mounted with this GG&G, I think is the name of this company. This mount, which is a very nicely made and a good sturdy mount for the flashlight. But for a laser, not so much, because it's got a little bit, no matter how much you tension it and what you do, it's got a little bit of wobble. And see, this is the problem with lasers. It depending on the distance you're using it at, a little bit off is a lot, and can be, yeah, pretty damaging. And I'm real hesitant to use a mount like this, or, you know, what the other alternatives are. There's not a lot of alternatives. Maybe a clamp-on one on the, but you don't have any space there really to put a clamp on this magazine tube. So you're very limited in what you can do to mount a laser here. And using something like this that's hanging out there, boy, one little bump and you're not zeroed. You see? So there you go. Not to mention you could possibly damage the unit pretty easy. It's out there, hanging out there so far. If you're like Mr. Holster, I damage stuff all the time, whacking it into stuff. I got my 1911 on my holster, and I whack into stuff all the time with it just walking around. Which is why I don't like bikini holsters. But at any rate, this is one that you whack that, I don't think you're going to be doing too much damage to it. Yeah, I think it's well thought out, and the chances of getting it out of zero by whacking it or something are pretty much non-existent. It's certainly as the ultimate. The best you could do to keep from getting it whacked out of zero is the way they've got that thing set up, and it looks like an outstanding laser, and it actually gets me to think that'd be nice to have a laser. One of the problems with this thing is, you know, you shoot it down on the hip and you can't get a shot off that's really accurate, but if you had that laser, then you could see what get the laser right on target and shoot, right? Well, yeah, maybe out in the shooting range for fun if you got a really good backstop, but yeah, no, in real life, no. This is the other thing I dislike about lasers is it's nice to have it for that precise shot. Maybe in a low light situation and everything, you have to make that precise shot on target. But the truth of the matter is you can never use a laser without lining up your sights first. You need to get it on target, get your sights, get it on target, get your sights on target, and make sure that laser dot is right there on your sights so that you haven't gone out of zero before you can fire, because you don't want to hit an unintended target. You want to hit the target in question. You see what I'm saying? So even if your laser is perfect and on sight, you still have to use your iron sights. You still have to get it up, whether it be the shotgun or a handgun. You got to get that out there and check your sights and make sure your laser's to point of aim before you can depend on that laser, because it might have gotten whacked out of zero for whatever reason. And if we'll take a scenario here. I'll float it out there for you. You put your dot, your red dot or green dot laser on the target, and you pull the trigger. And instead of hitting that target, you hit another target. And then they say, were you planning on hitting that target? And you go, well, no, I was aiming at this target. And they say, what was your sight picture? And you go, what? Your sight picture. What did your sights look at when you pulled that trigger? Look like when you pulled that trigger? What was your sight picture? And you'll go, well, I don't know, because I didn't look at the sights. Well, if you carry that to the point where instead of hitting an unintended target that's just another target, and hit something that could do some actual damage that would be damaging to your future, you can see where that answering that question would pretty much put the nail in your coffin. So this is the problem I have with the laser sights on this thing. You mount it here, it's easy to get it whacked, so people have been putting Picatinny rails. I've seen a lot of these on that forum I was talking about earlier, where they've put a Picatinny rail up here and put a big laser sight up there. And then what's your sight picture? Well, you don't have one at all, do you? No, because you can't see through that laser. So yeah, there you go. And that's one of the reasons I've never been comfortable with lasers, because I don't even trust them to stay in zero inside of the laser itself. I don't know what's going on in there. The squirrel might get off of the wheel it's running around on, and it gets out of zero. I don't trust them, because that's me. It's just something else to go wrong. I trust the best I can do, I figure, in life is to trust the iron sights, because you look at the iron sights on a gun, and if they've gotten whacked out of alignment, chances are you're going to see it right away, especially if you're practicing with that firearm all along. As soon as you bring it up, you'll say, oh my God, something's happened to my sights. You see? So I can trust my eyes, and I trust my sights, and I can trust myself and my eye to see that the sights haven't been whacked out of alignment. But I can't trust what would be going on in this laser at all. And I can't trust that it's on alignment and still in zero without checking it with my iron sights. You see where I'm going with this? So I've come to the conclusion long since that I just, laser sights don't work for me personally. I'm not saying they aren't very nice to have on a gun and have a lot of usage. It's just me being the neurotic guy I am. And stuff doesn't always work right, and to prove it, I can talk about the cancer that resulted in all my lymph nodes being removed under my armpit on this right side. It was sitting in there for over 7 months, even though I'd had CT scans. I don't even know how many CT scans. 2 CT scans in that time period and a PET scan. And this was sitting there 7 months undetected. Not to mention the radioactive isotopes and the CT scan. That was another one that they did at the beginning, that it didn't trace to this side, only traced to this side, you see? And that's pretty expensive equipment, a lot more expensive than that $160 sight, laser sight you're buying. And it didn't work. So, but it's get the same possible same results. You could kill somebody depending on that piece of equipment, like they've done here. You gotta laugh about this stuff. So, point being, out of all the lasers I've seen, this one, let's look at the picture again. That saddleback sitting on top of the receiver still allows you to use your sights. In this case, just the sight on the front, but it allows you to use that sight and get a sight picture and still have that laser. And it's going to be awful difficult to whack that out of alignment. Now, the electronic end of it, what goes on inside, we can only hope and pray it stays zeroed. But here you're looking at Crimson Trace laser, which I think you could argue is probably the premier one of the bunch, I would say. They've certainly been around for a long time and are a trusted name. So if you're unlike Mr. Holster and like lasers, I would suggest that might be the one to go with for $160. It at least allows you to keep using your sights, and it's the least likely to malfunction, I think. The cream of the crop, and the least likely to get whacked out of position with the way it sits in that receiver. So there you go. There's a review from a guy who never even saw the thing other than reading about it. And I would have liked to have bought one and given you a real review, but you know, the limitations I have are obvious. So there you go. I thought I'd do that today and talk about laser sights, and because this kind of touches on a subject that I really have problems with the posts and things I see on the internet on laser sights, because they really represent it as all you got to do is slap it on your gun, zero in, and you never need to use your sights again. You can just put that red dot on your targets and bang away, guys. And I hate to see it, because if you're like Mr. Holster, when it comes to the real deal, it never goes well. and by doing that, especially the Picatinny rail version where you slap it up on top and just write your sights off and just shoot it from the hip off that little beam, yeah, I think you're just asking for a load of heartbreak. Put it that way. So, well, there you go. You can start the hate comments down below and tell me, as I've seemed to be getting a lot of them the last week. It must be the cold weather. People have nothing else to do, telling me I'm a dumbass and a moron. And it's usually because I said something they didn't want to hear. Not that it isn't accurate, but they didn't want to hear it. Because by hearing it, that you can't do it. Well, if I believe that, I can't do what I want to do. Well, you know, nobody's saying you can't do what you want to do. Knock yourself out. This is America. You're supposed to be able to do what you want to do. You know, pursuit of happiness. But you're also, not so much nowadays, a lot of people don't want it to be this way, but when I grew up, yeah, you were responsible for everything you did. See? Everybody wants to do stuff but not be responsible in this world nowadays. That's why this world's become what it is. Yeah. Well, there you go. There's my little bit of philosophy in life, and like 16 minutes of your life you'll never ever get back again, plus that shooting video at the front. So yeah, you're gonna be more like 20 minutes of your life you'll never get back again on this one. I'm sorry about that, guys. Thanks for tuning in to HardTarget Range this week. Till next time, from Mr. Holster and Jack, go out and stay safe. 1,250 feet per second. Works pretty good. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of HardTarget Range. Till next time, for Mr. Holster and Jack, go out and stay safe.